Eridu City was a sprawling hub of trade and diplomacy, its streets bustling with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Luke Marrow, a human soldier on temporary leave, strolled through its vibrant marketplace. He had been stationed on Eridu as part of the Galactic Peace Corps, but today he was just another face in the crowd, soaking in the sights and sounds of the interstellar bazaar. The marketplace was a kaleidoscope of cultures. Traders hawking glowing crystals, musicians playing alien instruments, and vendors offering delicacies that shimmered and steamed. Luke's attention was drawn to a stall selling handcrafted ornaments made from bioluminescent materials. As he inspected a small, glowing pendant, the sharp crack of a gunshot shattered the lively atmosphere. Chaos erupted. People screamed and scattered, leaving Luke standing amidst the commotion. His eyes darted to the source, a desperate thief waving a makeshift energy pistol. The thief's gaze locked onto a figure just a few steps ahead of Luke. A woman cloaked in flowing green robes that shimmered like the leaves of an ancient tree. She stood frozen, her wide violet eyes fixed on the barrel of the gun. Before he could think, Luke moved. His body acted on instinct, years of military training kicking in. He lunged forward just as the thief pulled the trigger. The energy bolt struck Luke squarely in the side, sending him sprawling to the ground. Pain flared through him, but he ignored it, his focus still on the woman. The thief fled into the crowd, and the marketplace began to settle. Luke tried to push himself up, but his strength faltered. The last thing he saw before everything went dark was the woman kneeling beside him, her hands glowing softly as she pressed them to his wound. Luke awoke to the faint hum of medical equipment and the sterile smell of antiseptic. Blinking against the bright light, he realized he was in a hospital room. His side ached, but the pain was manageable, dulled by medication. "Good, you're awake," a soft voice said. He turned his head to see the woman from the marketplace sitting by his bedside. Her green robes were gone, replaced by a simple but elegant dress. Her violet eyes, now filled with concern, studied him intently. "You took a shot meant for me," she said. "Why?" Luke shrugged, wincing at the movement. Didn't seem right to let it happen. A small smile tugged at her lips. "You didn't even know me." "Didn't need to," he replied. "You were in danger. That's all that mattered." She seemed to weigh his words, her expression softening. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I owe you my life." Luke waved her off weakly. "Just doing what anyone would have done." Her smile turned bittersweet. "Not just anyone." Before he could ask what she meant, the door to his room slid open, and two tall, armored figures entered. Their presence was imposing, their movements precise as they stood on either side of the woman. "Your Highness," one of them said, bowing slightly, "the council awaits your presence." Luke's brows knitted in confusion. "Your Highness?" The woman turned back to him, an almost apologetic look in her eyes. "I didn't get a chance to introduce myself properly. I am Princess Illyria of the Verdant Realm." Luke blinked, his mind racing. He'd heard of the Verdant Realm, a mysterious and powerful monarchy known for its isolation. The princess's identity explained the glowing hands and the reverence of her guards. But what left him speechless was the realization that he had taken a bullet for one of the galaxy's most important figures without even knowing it. "Wait," he said, his voice laced with disbelief. "You're a princess?" Illyria nodded, her expression gentle. "And you, Sergeant Marrow, are a hero." Luke didn't know how to respond, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. But one thing was clear. His life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. Luke sat up in the hospital bed, his mind spinning as he processed Illyria's words. The princess herself sat gracefully at his side, her violet eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and concern. Outside the door, the imposing figures of her royal guard stood sentinel, their presence a constant reminder of the significance of what had just happened. "You're serious?" Luke asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You're the princess of the Verdant Realm?" Illyria offered a small, almost apologetic smile. "I am. And what you did for me, it was not a small thing. My people owe you a debt we can never repay." "I didn't know who you were," Luke admitted. "I just saw someone in trouble and acted." "Which makes your actions all the more extraordinary," Illyria said. "Most would have hesitated, weighed their own safety. But you—" She hesitated as though searching for the right words. You risked everything for a stranger. Luke shrugged, wincing as the movement pulled at his healing wound. It's what I was trained to do. Her expression softened further. Perhaps, but it's also who you are. Before Luke could respond, the door slid open, and an older alien in flowing robes entered. His presence was commanding, his features sharp and regal. It took Luke a moment to realize he was looking at King Althar, ruler of the Verdant Realm. Your Majesty, Illyria said, standing and bowing her head. Luke instinctively moved to do the same, but the king raised a hand. Stay seated, Sergeant Marrow. You've done more than enough. King Althar's voice was deep and steady, carrying the weight of years of leadership. He approached Luke, his piercing gaze assessing the human soldier. You saved my daughter's life, and for that, you have my eternal gratitude. But this act has made you a figure of immense interest throughout the galaxy. Luke frowned. Interest? What do you mean? The king exchanged a glance with Illyria before continuing. News of the incident has spread far and wide. A human soldier risking his life to save a member of Verdant royalty. It has captured the imagination of countless worlds. And while some admire your bravery, others see this as an opportunity to exploit. Luke's stomach tightened. Exploit how? Illyria answered softly, her tone heavy. There are those who would use your heroism as a means to challenge our sovereignty, to claim that a human's intervention undermines our strength. King Althar nodded grimly. You've become a symbol, Sergeant Marrow, and symbols, whether they want to be or not, often find themselves at the center of conflict. After the king's visit, Luke was discharged from the hospital under heavy security. He was escorted to a private transport, bound for a location few outsiders had ever seen, the capital city of the Verdant Realm. Illyria insisted on traveling with him, her presence a source of comfort amidst the overwhelming situation. The journey was surreal. The transport glided through shimmering nebulae and past crystalline moons, finally descending onto a planet teeming with lush, verdant life. The capital city itself was a marvel of nature and technology intertwined. Towering spires of living trees stretched toward the sky, their branches glowing with bioluminescent light. Rivers of shimmering water flowed through the streets, their currents powering intricate machinery. Luke stepped out of the transport, his breath stolen by the sheer beauty of the world around him. This place, it's incredible. It's home, Illyria said softly, her voice tinged with pride. And now it's a part of your story. They were greeted by a procession of royal courtiers and dignitaries, their elaborate robes reflecting the vibrant colors of the Verdant Realm. As Luke walked beside Illyria toward the royal palace, he couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place. Inside the palace, a formal reception was held in his honor. Luke, dressed in ceremonial garb provided by the royal tailors, stood awkwardly as King Althar addressed the gathered crowd. Today, we honor a man who acted without hesitation, without thought of reward, the king proclaimed. Sergeant Marrow represents the very best of what we aspire to be, courageous, selfless, and principled. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the grand hall. Luke shifted uncomfortably, unused to such attention. Illyria leaned in and whispered, "You're doing fine." After the reception, Luke was summoned to a private chamber where King Althar and Illyria awaited. The room was quiet, lit by the soft glow of luminescent plants. "We've discussed this at length," the king began, his tone serious. "Your actions have created ripples that will not fade quickly. To protect you and to honor what you have done, we wish to grant you a place here in the Verdant Realm." Luke blinked, taken aback. "A place?" Illyria stepped forward, her eyes earnest. "Land, a home, a role among our people, something no outsider has ever been given." Luke hesitated, the weight of the offer pressing down on him. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because you saved me," Illyria said simply, "and because you've proven yourself worthy of our trust." Luke looked between the two of them, his heart pounding. The choice before him wasn't just about accepting a reward. It was about stepping into a world that was as alien as it was beautiful, a world he had already risked his life to protect. Finally, he nodded. "All right, let's see where this road takes me." Illyria's smile was radiant, and for the first time Luke felt a sense of belonging that he hadn't known he was searching for. The next day, Luke was escorted to the outskirts of the capital city, where the gift promised to him awaited. Illyria accompanied him, her presence a constant reminder of the extraordinary circumstances that had brought him here. They traveled in a sleek, open-air vehicle powered by the natural energy of the verdant realm. The lush landscape stretching endlessly around them. The vehicle stopped on the crest of a hill overlooking a valley that seemed to shimmer with life. Vibrant green fields spread out below, dotted with crystalline trees that glowed faintly even in the daylight. A river wound through the valley, its water sparkling as if infused with light. "This," Illyria said, gesturing to the valley, "is yours." Luke stepped out of the vehicle, his boots sinking slightly into the soft, mossy ground. He stared at the land, struggling to process the enormity of what he was seeing. "You're serious? This whole place?" Illyria nodded, her violet eyes shining. "The verdant realm does not give gifts lightly. You risked everything for me, and this is how we honor that." The land was not just a plot of dirt and trees, it was alive in a way Luke had never experienced. The air seemed to hum with energy, and he could feel the subtle rhythms of the ecosystem beneath his feet. It was as though the valley itself was welcoming him. A group of verdant artisans approached, carrying tools and materials made from the living wood and stone of the realm. They bowed slightly to Luke and Illyria before beginning to construct a home for him. The process was mesmerizing. The artisans worked in harmony with the land, shaping it without damaging it, weaving the living elements into a structure that felt like it belonged there. Luke turned to Illyria, his voice low with awe. "This is incredible. I don't even know where to start." She smiled, a warmth in her expression that he hadn't seen before. "Start by listening to the land. It will guide you." Over the following days, Luke immersed himself in the rhythms of his new home. The verdant artisans taught him how to care for the living structures and cultivate the land without disrupting its balance. Illyria visited often, offering guidance and sharing stories of her people's connection to the planet. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of his newly completed home, Luke looked out over the valley, the soft glow of the trees casting a gentle light. "This place, it's nothing like Earth, but it feels like home." Illyria turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "That's because you've embraced it. Many would have seen this as a reward to be exploited, but you've treated it with respect." Luke shrugged, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I guess it's hard not to when it feels like the land's alive." "It is," Illyria said, her voice soft. "And now, so are you. You're part of this place, Luke, just as it's part of you." Luke's peaceful routine was interrupted one morning when a group of verdant guards arrived at his home. Their leader, a tall alien with bark-like skin, stepped forward. "Sergeant Marrow, we have a problem." The guards escorted Luke and Illyria to a nearby village, where a group of traders had set up an unauthorized camp. The traders were outsiders, drawn by rumors of Luke's gift and the riches of the verdant realm. They were harvesting rare plants and disrupting the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Luke approached the camp, his military instincts kicking in. The traders, a mix of humans and aliens, eyed him warily. Their leader, a grizzled human with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward. "You the one they're all talking about? The human with land in this paradise?" Luke crossed his arms, his voice calm but firm. "You're trespassing," the man smirked, "and you're a soldier playing farmer. Let's not kid ourselves. You don't belong here any more than we do." Illyria stepped beside Luke, her tone icy. "This is not your place to question. Leave or face the consequences." The tension was thick as the traders hesitated. Luke could see their greed battling with their fear. Finally, the leader sneered. "We'll leave, for now, but this isn't the last you've seen of us." As the traders packed up and left, Luke turned to Illyria. "That's not the end of it, is it?" She shook her head. "No, word is spreading about this place. More will come, and they won't all be so easy to convince." Determined to protect his new home, Luke began working with the verdant guards and Illyria to establish defenses and patrols. He also reached out to neighboring villages, fostering connections and building a network of allies. The valley was not just his home, it was a responsibility, one he was determined to uphold. One night, as they stood by the river, Illyria spoke softly. "You've taken on so much, Luke, more than we ever asked of you." He looked at her, his expression serious. "This place is worth it. You're worth it." Her gaze met his, a flicker of something deeper passing between them. You're more than just a soldier, Luke. You're part of this realm now, and you're not alone. In that moment, Luke realized that his bond with Illyria had grown into something far more profound than duty or gratitude. Together, they were not just protecting the verdant realm, they were building a future in it. The morning started with a strange stillness in the valley. The usual hum of the verdant realm's vibrant ecosystem was subdued, the energy in the air thick with unease. Luke, already attuned to the land's rhythms, stepped onto his balcony and scanned the horizon. His instincts on high alert. A sudden call from a nearby verdant guard shattered the quiet. "They're back." Luke grabbed his weapon, a hybrid between verdant technology and human engineering, and hurried to the edge of the valley where the guards had gathered. In the distance, a fleet of hovering vehicles approached, their sleek forms bristling with weaponry. The traders had returned, this time heavily armed and clearly prepared for a fight. Illyria joined Luke at the front line, her expression calm but resolute. "They're here to claim what they think is theirs." "Over my dead body," Luke muttered, his grip tightening on his weapon. The leader of the traders stepped forward, flanked by a squad of heavily armed mercenaries. "We warned you, Marrow," he called out. "This place doesn't belong to you or them. It's a gold mine, and we're here to take our share." Luke stepped forward, his voice carrying over the tense silence. "This land doesn't belong to me. It's part of the verdant realm, and you have no claim here. Leave now, or you'll regret it." The leader sneered. "You think you can stop us? With a few guards and your little princess? Be realistic, soldier." Before Luke could respond, Illyria raised her hand, her fingers glowing with the same ethereal light she had used to save his life. "This is your final warning," she said, her voice steady but laced with power. "Leave or face the wrath of the realm itself." The traders laughed, their leader waving dismissively. "Bluff all you want. We've got the firepower, and you're outnumbered." The standoff lasted only moments before the traders opened fire, their weapons lighting up the air. Luke and the guards responded immediately, their coordinated defense forcing the invaders to split their focus. Illyria stood at the center of the fray, her magic weaving shields of light that deflected enemy fire and protected her people. The battle was fierce, the traders pressing hard against the verdant defenders. Luke's military training and leadership proved invaluable as he directed the guards, exploiting the terrain and the natural defenses of the valley. Illyria's powers amplified their efforts, turning the tide in their favor. As the fighting reached its peak, the land itself seemed to respond. Vines erupted from the ground, entangling vehicles and disarming attackers. The trees swayed as if alive, their glowing branches lashing out at the invaders. The verdant realm was fighting back, its connection to Illyria and Luke strengthening with each passing moment. The traders retreated, their vehicles damaged, and their forces scattered. The valley, though scarred by the battle, remained intact, its defenses proving stronger than the invaders had anticipated. Luke stood at the edge of the battlefield, his weapon lowered, his chest heaving with exertion. Illyria approached him, her glow dim but her expression determined. "We did it," she said softly. Luke nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the traders had fled. "For now, but they'll be back. And next time, they'll come with more." Illyria placed a hand on his arm, her touch grounding him. "Then we'll be ready, together." The aftermath of the battle brought challenges of its own. The wounded needed care, and the valley's natural defenses needed to be restored. Luke worked tirelessly alongside the verdant guards and villagers, his respect for the land and its people growing with every effort. Despite the victory, the cost weighed heavily on him. Several guards had been injured, and the valley's delicate ecosystem bore the scars of the conflict. Illyria, sensing his burden, sought him out one evening as he repaired the damage to his home. "You're carrying too much," she said, her voice gentle. Luke sighed, setting down his tools. "I can't help it. This place, it means everything to me now. I can't let it fall apart." Illyria stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "It won't. Because of you. You've given us hope, Luke, more than we've had in a long time." Her words and the quiet strength behind them eased some of the weight on his shoulders. "I didn't do it alone," he said, his voice soft. "I couldn't have." Illyria smiled, a warmth in her expression that made his heart ache. "And you never will." In the days that followed, Luke and Illyria worked together to strengthen the valley's defenses. They rallied the nearby villages, uniting the verdant people in a way that had not been seen for generations. Luke's leadership and Illyria's magic became the cornerstones of their renewed strength, their bond deepening with each challenge they faced. As they stood together one evening, overlooking the glowing valley, Luke turned to Illyria. "I came here thinking I was just doing my duty, but now it feels like I found something more." Illyria's gaze softened, her voice barely above a whisper. "You found a home, Luke, and we found you." The fight for the verdant realm was far from over, but in that moment, surrounded by the beauty and resilience of their world, Luke knew they had a chance. Together, they would face whatever came next, their bond stronger than ever. The peace that followed the traders' retreat was short-lived. Reports from neighboring villages indicated that the invaders had regrouped and allied with mercenaries to mount a large-scale assault. Their plan was simple but devastating: overwhelm the verdant realm's defenders, seize the valley's resources, and dismantle the delicate ecosystem for profit. Luke, Illyria, and the Verdant Council convened in the capital to strategize. The room buzzed with tension as holographic projections of the traders' movements flickered above the table. The threat was undeniable. "This isn't just a raid," Luke said, his tone grave. "They're bringing enough firepower to level the valley. We can't just defend, we need to strike first." The council members exchanged wary glances. One elder spoke up, their voice heavy with doubt. "Our people are not warriors, Sergeant Marrow. We are caretakers of this land." Luke turned to Illyria, his expression resolute. "We don't need an army, we just need the right plan. The land itself is our greatest weapon." Illyria nodded, her violet eyes filled with determination. "We'll use the realm's defenses, its natural energy, to turn their strength against them." Together, Luke and Illyria worked tirelessly to prepare. Luke organized a network of scouts and defenders, while Illyria tapped into the ancient magic of the verdant realm. The valley's ecosystem became an extension of their strategy. Trees reshaped into barriers, rivers redirected into traps, and bioluminescent plants woven into communication networks. When the invaders arrived, the valley was ready. The battle began at dawn. The traders' fleet descended in a deafening roar, their ships casting long shadows over the glowing landscape. The first wave of mercenaries charged into the valley, only to find themselves ensnared by vines that erupted from the ground. Energy blasts fired wildly as confusion spread through their ranks. Luke led the defense with precision, coordinating strikes from hidden positions. His human training combined with the verdant realm's unique resources made for an unpredictable and devastating counterattack. Illyria stood at the heart of the valley, her powers radiating outward as she summoned the land's full strength. The ground beneath the invaders cracked and shifted, swallowing vehicles and cutting off their escape routes. The air shimmered with her magic, her connection to the realm palpable. As the battle raged on, Luke and Illyria fought side by side. When a mercenary captain broke through the defenses and charged at Illyria, Luke intercepted him, his blade flashing in the dim light. The two clashed in a brutal, close-quarters fight, but Luke's determination won out. He disarmed the captain and delivered a final, decisive blow. By nightfall, the invaders were in full retreat. The valley stood strong, its defenders battered but victorious. The once bustling mercenary fleet was now a scattering of smoking wreckage, a testament to the power of unity and resilience. The victory marked a turning point for the verdant realm. News of the battle spread across the galaxy, earning Luke and Illyria widespread admiration. The story of the human soldier and the alien princess who had defended their home against overwhelming odds inspired hope in countless worlds. In the days that followed, Luke found himself reflecting on how far he had come. His once simple life as a soldier now felt like a distant memory. The valley wasn't just a place to him, it was a part of who he was. Illyria visited him one evening, her presence as calming as the gentle hum of the land around them. "You've given so much to this place," she said, her voice soft, "more than we ever asked." Luke smiled, his gaze meeting hers. "It's not just your home anymore, it's ours." Her expression softened, her violet eyes shimmering with emotion. "You've become part of us, Luke, and we're stronger because of it." The council declared Luke an official guardian of the verdant realm. a title reserved for those who embodied the realm's values of courage, unity, and respect for the land. The ceremony was simple but profound, held under the glow of the valley's ancient trees. As Luke took his oath, Illyria stood beside him, her presence a constant source of strength. Years later, Luke and Illyria walked through the valley, now thriving more than ever. The scars of the battle had healed, replaced by vibrant growth that symbolized the realm's resilience. Villages flourished, and the people lived in harmony with the land. "You know," Luke said, his voice light with humor, "if someone had told me I'd end up here, I would have called them crazy." Illyria laughed, a sound as warm as the sunlight filtering through the trees. "And if someone had told me a human would become one of our greatest defenders, I wouldn't have believed them." They stopped at the river's edge, the water reflecting the bioluminescent glow of the forest. Luke turned to Illyria, his expression earnest. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Illyria smiled, her hand brushing his. "And I wouldn't have wanted to do it without you." As the twin moons rose above the verdant realm, casting their silver light over the land, Luke and Illyria stood together, their bond unshakable. Their story, once a tale of sacrifice and courage, had become a legacy of hope, proving that even in the vastness of the galaxy, unity and love could grow in the most unexpected places.